Well, welcome to the first meeting of 2018, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome back. Bring this meeting to order. We have roll call, please. Dee?
What?
Roll call, please.
Dee Monroe?
Kay Mikely.
Bob Corvus.
Lou Ennisser.
Sean Dwyer.
Okay, we have a quorum. Let's review our December meeting. Well, we didn't have a December meeting. So there are no minutes from December. Do we have our
And-
meeting minutes from the prior month?
Well, wasn't that our forum?
Yeah, well, we were at the forum, so I guess we'll move along. So there are no minutes. Okay, we can go to audience comments. Are you prepared for audience comments?
I am as prepared as possible.
Okay,
At 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, I'll tell you
it's
that.
8:08, so you've had
8:08.
8 extra minutes in your coffee, so.
Speaking for myself and about 99% of the rest of the people that live in Prospect Heights, it's a kind of an ungodly time for any committee meeting, but I managed to make it. No, I mean, seriously, I just wanted to talk about the water forum and the nature of this committee, because I don't see a lot of progress towards city water. And as you know, I have been a proponent of city water for years and years, decades in the city. And I guess the question I would have, and I don't have any major disagreement with what you guys did with the water forum and the people that attended and the vendors that were there, but I didn't see any particular case for city water being made at the forum. And I think that, and I was disappointed. And of course, Sean is the chairman of the committee to try to help residents move forward with initiatives of doing SSAs and trying to get things moving. And I don't see any movement. And I don't see, I really have a question as to, if you did plan to do something regarding city water, what was it at the forum? What component was there that helped people understand the benefits of city water, not just the benefits of well water? And, you know, obviously there's pros and cons. It's just that, you know, the dialogue should be balanced. You know, do you guys agree with that?
I don't think it's a matter of agree or disagree. I think it's just a matter of feedback from the community, what they want to discuss and what they want to see. We created 2 subcommittees, Rich, for the purpose of giving voice to both parties, pro and con. And probably over the last 4 to 6 months, I'd have to say that there's been very little interest by the well water, well, I take that back, by the SSA committee, subcommittee. There's been no activity. Last year there was some interest. They don't seem to be taking any interest. So, you know, our position as a water committee is not to promote one or the other, but to satisfy the request of the community. If we were approached, as we were last year, with the SSA subcommittee and given an opportunity, they would have been on the forum as well. Sean is in charge of the SSA subcommittee. Sean, if you have some comment as to what's going on, why there's no interest?
I mean, I think you know, you guys all have a longer tenure and experience when it comes to SSA formation and conversation around city water. And I think it's been a natural ebb and flow where there's a lot of excitement initially when the committee first started. I think our membership, our SSA subcommittee was up to 10 members or so. We were holding monthly meetings. You know, the energy was there. And then as the what's in it for me came around for a lot of the members, which I'm empathetic to, some of that momentum trailed off. And frankly, the excitement and the way people collaborating around it wasn't there. And I think at this point it's at a low. And as you know as well as everyone else here, that it takes a large group of people in the community to make it happen, not just one individual. So that's, I think, where it stands at this point. maybe 2018, we can shift that somehow.
Also, I think if we start going around trying to drum up business for city water, that defeats the purpose of our committee, as you mentioned. We're supposed to be kind of in the middle here and not really pro-water, pro-well, or anything, just provide information for people who, so they can make a decision on what they want to do. And so I don't
Correct.
see us pushing any direction at all.
Where I see if there was
Yeah.
a
Sure. certainly
group
if
of
somebody
people
came.
that said, hey, we have 30 homes in this area, and we're all on the same page. Sean, what's the next step? What are we doing? Boom, then we facilitate and help and assist. But to put it on my shoulders as the chairperson or someone else's shoulders, I think is not, as you mentioned, not the role of my role.
Yeah, I really am not trying to pile on here. I know how hard it is. I do
Right.
know. I've been there.
Yeah.
And I do think part of the problem is a failure to communicate with the city council as well. I've spoken with every single council member about city water and the mayor. And I can tell you that their perspective on this is different than yours. Most of them seem to think that the water committee is here to support the existing water supply, whatever it may be, within the city, and also to help move ahead the concept of building out a city water system.
That's accurate. right?
That's exactly what I think they think you're doing. And I don't think you think that's what's happening, or should happen. In other words, when you say you shouldn't promote one thing or the other, I don't think you should promote anything other than the most logical thing for any municipality to do, which is ensure that there's an adequate supply of water throughout the entire community, and mostly that means a city water system. It's the lifeblood of all municipalities. If you drive across this country, every single town has a city water system. You can drive through the smallest town in Kansas and see a water tower. It's just unbelievable that we don't have the availability of city water throughout the entire city. This is the problem. And it goes further than just a personal choice. Because, in my view, the three things that I think were missing components of the water forum was a spokesperson for the fire district, because obviously water is an important component in fighting fires. And they have put out a position statement years ago that said that they were in support of a city water system throughout the city, and they need fire hydrants in order to fight fires. And, I think if you had invited Drew Smith or Tim Jones or somebody, like that from the fire district, they would have been happy to come and talk to the people that attended and give them a little bit of background, maybe, and at least a reason why a city water system is important for them. And another reason would be economic development. Dan Peterson does not only the building department, runs the building department for the city, but he also works with commercial people that were looking at Prospect Heights to develop property, build either a residential building or commercial building, or take over something, and or build a restaurant or something that require, God forbid, a auto dealership that requires a lot of water. And when they don't have a positive water supply available readily, that means that they have to dig a deep well and do a lot of extra work in order to accommodate the property for water. And obviously, and this is one of the liabilities in Prospect Heights for economic development. When you drive down Rand Road, you look at some of the vacant property, things that haven't been developed, it's because some of these properties are Prospect Heights and some of them are Arlington Heights. And the Arlington Heights properties are way more developed than Prospect Heights properties are. It's because of water.
But Rich, we can't jam it down the residents' throats.
I know that.
We can't do that. They have to at least show some desire. And you could see all the people that are here this morning.
Mhm.
So maybe the councilmen too should try to help develop it if that's the way they feel.
Agreed.
You know, Kay's making a very good point. She's thinking the same way I'm thinking, Rich. When you make the statement that the city council is looking for us to do this, no, they're not, because we don't have any authority to create any regulation. We're just a recommendation committee. We're just here to hear the community. They didn't give us that power. And as far as making a suggestion, yes, I agree. I think the city should have city water. I'm a supporter. You know that I had a successful SSA. And when it comes to, I feel in some ways pointing fingers that it's our obligation when it's not, and you should know that by now because you were in charge of this committee years ago, and people were upset because they felt they were being forced into water here in our community. When I took over this committee, a little over 2 years now, we had probably 40, 50 people in the audience, and 2/3 of them, basically had pitchforks saying, don't force water on us. Well, that tells you that the people who are interested in having water aren't supporting it. And you need to organize and get people motivated. I've given you my opinion. When you ran your own SSA, I gave you my suggestions and recommendations of how to be successful. And it didn't work.
Well,
You didn't
I
take
didn't come here to
you didn't
talk
take
about
my
it.
recommendations.
I really
So to
didn't
come
to
here
talk
and
about
pick
that.
on our community, our committees, that we're not doing our job, I think we are. We're supposed to give people an option. They can either have well water or Lake Michigan SSA water. But we are not gonna do the SSA for them. They have to say they want it. Mr. Alpert, okay, he's one of the people who brought what he thought might be an SSA, and I believe there was like 48 people involved in that particular case. I talked to him on a couple of occasions, I communicated with him early on, and then nothing. We have other members who've been here. Bob brought in some bad water when Grandbrier was going up, and he didn't do anything to organize anything. We get a call here and there, people want water, but nobody wants to do any work. They think that they expect the city to do it for them, is my opinion. It doesn't work that way. I've told them that, I've expressed that, I've made myself available to people personally who are interested in the water. And I've also had meetings with Well Water Subcommittee, because it's the fair thing to do. We did a survey 2 years ago, and it was broken down approximately, 53% yes, 38% no, and 12% not sure. So it was not really 50-50 even. We've done some work, but we have no interest. People just don't seem to be motivated.
Well, frankly, when I speak with some of the people on the city council, they think that you are the one that can do it because you promote the success of SSA 6, and they expect you to duplicate that in other areas of the city. So,
Have you ever read our mission statement?
yeah,
Okay, it doesn't say anything in there about promoting anything. It just says providing information under 3 areas, which is people who want to keep wells.
Right.
People who want city water, and people who already have it.
right.
It doesn't say anything, nor should it, say anything about pushing in any direction. It's just information. Here's all the information. If you want to do any of these 3 things, here's information to help you do that. And I don't know how far we can go beyond that. So I don't really think that the city council thinks that that's our position, because certainly they've read our mission statement, so they know what we're doing.
You're assuming that.
Well, then maybe we can communicate
So
it then,
you
yeah.
don't think that the city council has read our mission statement?
I don't know that they've read it or not. I don't think they,
It's on the website. It's the first, isn't it the first thing on the
well,
website?
there's a lot of things for them to read. The reason I'm here is to try to move the ball forward.
Okay.
I think it's important to move the ball forward with city water. Who else is going to do it?
But
You
that
guys
is not
won't,
this-
you guys apparently don't think it's your job to do it. You're looking
My
at,
understanding on a directive, it's not a matter of us thinking it, it's a matter of the directives that we were given, is that we're
Right.
supposed to just be here as we're a non-binding, I'll tell you what, if the city
no,
council.
I've heard this before, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying
Yeah.
to say you're wrong. I'm just saying, I'm identifying the issues that need to be fixed.
So would you say?
I think that's an issue that needs to be
You've been involved with the city now a lot longer than I have, Rich, and I respect that, because you're a hardworking guy and you believe in our city. I believe in our city. the thing that I guess I'd ask you is, should we go to the committee, go to the city and say, give us a directive? Do we have authority to create ordinance, create law? What
I
authority
think-
do they want to give us? If they want to give
Yeah.
it to us, then give us a mandate. I think we can do
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. I mean, I had the same problem when I ran the water committee for years. The same problem with the city council. There were different members on the city council at that time.
Yeah.
Some of whom were, diametrically opposed to city water. So that was an even tougher situation. But I think the council itself should be involved in the development of the city. They take a big interest in developing a city center. They have had numerous meetings about trying to develop what they call a downtown for Prospect Heights. And frankly, I don't see it happening without water. I don't see how it can be done economically without a city water supply in that area that they're talking about. So, I mean, and they don't talk about water. It's almost the elephant in the room. So you as a water committee, I'm just saying, I don't know if you personally feel that your mission should include the promotion of a city water system, but I think it should.
Well, I think we did create a promotional arm by creating a subcommittee with the authority to do things with less restriction than we have, as our committee is currently formed. Okay, we can't go out and create SSAs, but the subcommittee would have that ability to organize, and they're not under the same restrictions we are. Same thing with the well water subcommittee. That, if they want to do, one of the things that they'd like to do is get more testing done. And maybe if people found, a few things wrong with their water, they might have second thoughts. But right now, nobody tests. I would,
Yeah.
do you think people are testing their water?
From what I heard at the forum, I think we had something like, in the Illinois State Water Survey, and I'm gonna pull this number out, I had something like 40-some odd residents that had actually sent to the Illinois State Water Survey their water to be tested. And the fella,
How many residents?
43, they had 43 samples from
Okay,
Prospect
out of
Heights,
2,200 households.
you know.
So that's
And what he said
less than 0.5%.
at the forum was that most times that they get the testing is because there's something wacky with the water, and they want to find out what it is. So they usually don't get good samples.
For sale.
I mean, that's what he was saying. But 43 people, and I'm one of them, so let's go to 42. You know?
And I'm not sure, but is there an ordinance that they have to test their water at a sale?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the only time they're going to get tested.
Only for coliform. It's not a
Well,
full test.
That's the precise issue. People could be, maybe they don't have bad water, maybe they do have bad water, but they're never going to know because there's not like a requirement.
Yeah, well, the well thing is, it's on the individual to worry about their well water. It's not the city's job to
And
worry
that's
about
it, it's on the individual, and we're just not getting that feedback, Rich. I mean, we would love to become a more active committee. And even each alderman knows what the pulse of his community, if they want or don't want, and they don't bring any of that information forward to us. I'm not blaming them, we all have a lot on our plate.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful to this committee, to us.
Well,
Would you be,
I'm trying to reach out to the committee and say, something needs to change.
well, would you be willing to share some of the background on what happened with your SSA and the status it's on and any, because
The
you had
status-
shared
well,
some,
that-
you had shared some information with me some time ago about getting reimbursed for something if it doesn't, if the water doesn't get,
Those are side issues, I think, at this stage, because it's been a long time since I've.
well, what I'm saying is you and I had a conversation regarding getting reimbursed for money that had been put out for a study
Yeah.
if water wasn't actually implemented by a certain time on that previous SSA.
If it
Would
wasn't
you-
implemented,
Pardon?
if it wasn't implemented,
If it wasn't.
yeah.
And would you share that deadline with us and what's going on?
The deadline is passed. It passed in December.
And then what happened? You got reimbursed?
Not yet. I mean, I haven't, it's only January. I haven't discussed this with the city administrator in the reimbursement, but I expect to be reimbursed.
Okay, so in that particular case, you chose to put money up front on behalf of your SSA rather than letting the community put the money up.
Well, that was a decision that was made based on the type of conversations that were going on within, if you want to call it a committee, it really was just a group of people that wanted city water. And there
Well,
were
see, Rich, this is
bunch of-
why I'm bringing this up, because that's where we had a difference of opinion and why SSAs succeed or fail. My SSA succeeded because virtually every member of our SSA put up $500 of their own money and were committed to it. You put up money with no commitment from any other participant in the city, so in essence, you were trying to push the cart instead of pull it with the horses.
You know, I don't care which way it goes, whatever works.
Well,
That was
yours
that-
didn't work, and I recommended to you many, many, many times that that's the way it works.
You know, I didn't come
I'm
here to
just-
talk about that.
Well, I know you didn't come here to talk about it, but you did. You came here to say that we are not active in pursuing water for the city, which is not our mission statement. Since you brought up the fact that you think it's our job, I'm explaining why, when you were there, you put up money when you should have had the community say, hey, we want water, we're willing to put our money up front
Yeah.
and be involved.
I think it should be your job.
Well, then the city council and the mayor has to say, our job is to get city water and not make this a
And
non-binding
That's
committee.
kind of where I started with this conversation, wasn't it? Where I said, I think the council needs to get more involved in it.
So
I
you're,
do think so.
okay, well,
I think it's.
so
a
basically you're
hand-in-glove
giving your
type of thing.
opinion, because I
Well,
don't think you're
let me
telling
say
me
it
I
this
need
way,
to go to
Bob.
the
You
city
can
council.
criticize me all you want to.
I'm not
I don't
criticizing
think,
you.
I know there are a lot of people.
I'm telling you the difference. I'm telling you the
Listen,
difference.
There are a lot of people in the community who know what I tried to do, and I was the only one that did it.
That's precisely
That's
the
the issue.
problem.
I was
You
the
were
only one that
You
did
hit
it.
it on a nail. You
Right.
have just convinced me that you know what you did, is you were running it and not the community.
And no one else stepped up to try to do that. And, you know,
Because
I
probably
will
because
say
nobody
that,
else wanted it.
Huh?
I'm guessing nobody else wanted it.
no, that wasn't the case,
Well, then
because
why didn't they contribute to putting the money up?
it wasn't, you know, the money part of it isn't, this, putting up the money myself sidesteps the problem of having to go around and form a association like you did with SSA 6. I mean, it sidesteps all of that. It moves the ball forward faster. We had.
It moves
we
the ball
did-
forward. Do you have water
Yeah.
in that community?
That's not the point. I'm talking
Well, I thought
about
it
the
was the
issue that,
point.
look, Bob, I mean, I didn't want to get into this, this morning, but I will get into it if you want to.
We've
Do you
got
want to
time.
argue about this?
We've got time to express
Okay.
your opinion.
Then we'll take it from there. The SSA 9 proposal was for almost 400 homes. We, as a water committee, the water committee surveyed about 275 of them. They actually got feedback from about 275 of them. And out of that survey, Kay was a part of that committee, by the way. Out of that survey, we had about a 66% favorable response towards building out a city water system. So the surveys were very detailed. It wasn't just, do you want water or don't you? It was about 10 or 12 very detailed questions about where each household was at with their experience with water and their interest in city water. And that survey was shared with the city council. It was shared with, it's a public document. And that's where once we as a public committee gathered that information, the council didn't seem to be interested in pursuing it as a community, meaning we developed this information for the city and presented it to them, and they said, okay, now what do we do? And I thought, well, this is kind of crazy because we have to convert that information into some action plan that would help actually bring about an SSA. And the way the SSA process works is it doesn't matter if it's one person, 10 people, or 50 people, or 100 people that decide to come forward with a request for an SSA, it's the same process. So I thought, well, maybe I, as an individual then, can take this information, which is public information, and form a proposal for an SSA. So I went and spoke with builders, and I spoke with other people within the city to see, and including our city attorney, the mayor, city administrator at the time, the council members, and got the feeling that they were open to the idea of reviewing a request for an SSA. And that was my encouragement, to say, you know, whether I collect money or not, this council is going to welcome this proposal with open arms and move it forward. That's why I did what I did. So I thought, well, all I need then is to get a study, get a engineering study, the preliminary study done. And I found a engineering firm that was willing to do that. And they cut me a deal, meaning me, the city, really essentially a deal, to do it for $7,500, when other engineering firms probably would have charged $15,000. So I thought, you know, this is actually a really great way of getting the documents and the components of the request for an SSA together. I put up the money with the stipulation and the agreement with the city and the contract that said that once I did that and created this request for an SSA, that the city would repay that money within 5 years, even if there was no SSA created. So I didn't see any real downside to that. I mean, it wasn't that I was putting up $7,500 that I would lose if this didn't materialize. It was really the city ensuring through a contract with me that the city itself wanted this done. So I didn't just run off and do this helter-skelter on my own. The characterization that you're putting forward isn't quite right. So that's what encouraged me to do that. So I wrote the check, got the engineering study together, ran around, told all the people that were really the core supporters that we're going to move forward with this. They were all excited. I created little stickers that they could put on their shirts. It's time for city water. We came to a council meeting. There were probably, I don't know, I can't remember how many people were there. At least 50, maybe 100 people came to the meeting, sat in the rows here, and I presented my request for an SSA to the council. And the council members acted like they were a rabbit in headlights, like they knew nothing about this. It was surreal to me, because I expected them to say, hey, great, you finally got this all together. This is time that we can look at this, move forward. We'll analyze it. We'll decide if we want to form an SSA and hold a public hearing and see which way the wind blows. Because there's really two hearings involved in a creation of an SSA. There's one to basically create, say we're going to create an SSA and move forward with building out of a water system in this particular area. And then after that's done, the public has an opportunity to, petition and do whatever they want to do if it's really super negative to that area, which I didn't think it was, because we already had the survey showing that people were in favor of it in the area that was defined, that they would then come and stop it by virtue, it's sort of a backdoor referendum, where the council initiates it, they wait a certain period of time, the public has an opportunity to provide feedback, and then even after that, after the second meeting, the council feels there's really not enough support to move forward with this, they can say, well, we decided to hold off. So there's two opportunities. There's two public meetings that can occur between the time somebody requests this SSA, and the council has 100% control of that. If they approve it at the initial meeting, and then they approve it at the final meeting, then that's when it's in concrete. But the indication to me, right from the beginning, was that the council wanted this to happen. And as it turned out, sometime during that meeting, they decided that they needed to have more input from the city engineer, because they didn't want it be all on them. It somehow, I think what happened was that people started, maybe the city engineer did, I don't know really how this happened, but people started questioning the authenticity maybe, or the validity of the engineering study, because the engineering firm had done this work for less money than some other engineers would have done it for. I don't know if that's the reason. I can only say that's my guess. I was surprised, but they decided to employ Baxter and Woodman at that point. The city employed Baxter and Woodman to do an additional study. And it took them 6 months to do it. And during that 6 months, all the people that were so excited about the SSA-9 coming on board became completely disillusioned. After basically we're put on hold. It's like you run into this brick wall, now you're standing there for 6 months. Wait a second, now what? Nothing's happening. And when Baxter and Woodman comes back with this, this study, they came back with numbers that were wildly different than what the Toberman study had shown. And it was stunning. And so, again, when you see that happen, and when the council sees that there's essentially disagreement between engineers as to what this thing might actually cost, and what components were necessary in order to build it out, meaning Baxter and Woodman said, oh, well, we're going to need a water tower. Well, a water tower is not cheap. So, adding that to the mix adds even more cost to the thing. So, after reviewing all that, the council got cold feet at that point. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, SSA-9 proposal is still at their doorstep. They could still review it and decide that yes or no, but they've never done that. In the meantime, myself and a couple of other people looked at the actual numbers and put them on a spreadsheet. I'll be happy to share it with you if you want. And we looked at the numbers by comparing it to SSA-6. SSA-6 was the model that we wanted to show as it wasn't just a pipe dream, it was in concrete, it's in the ground. It's a done deal. So whatever the costs were involved in building out SSA-6 is sort of the baseline, right? And you could compare those costs to the costs that were estimated in the Toberman study, which was one I paid for, versus the Baxter and Woodman study, which had the inflated numbers. And if you try to compare, through this spreadsheet, apples to apples, oranges to oranges type of thing, you'll see that what Baxter Woodman study is as I heard from other people, a couple other people said, they provided contingency on top of contingency on top of contingency as far as cost estimates were concerned. In no way would this have been a realistic estimate of what it would cost. They ran it out to the most expensive possible, cost ever of building out a water system, and that's what they turned in. So obviously the real number is somewhere in between what they said and what SSA-6 was, and you won't really know that until you build the water system. So it's hard to tell people exactly what it's going to cost. That's because of the fact that some of the components are moving targets. It has to do with, the economy and what builders are willing to bid on these projects, and what the labor rates are, and all kinds of other things that are hard to estimate at the very beginning. That's why, but the bottom line was, the Toberman study was, in broad numbers, was probably 10 or 15% higher than what the real numbers were of the SSA-6, which at that time seemed pretty logical. But it was almost like beating a dead horse at that point, because the council had no appetite for trying to move this forward. And I had no appetite for going out and doing another survey, and nor an appetite for spending any more money, or especially spending my own personal money that I would never see again. So that's where it's at. It's been that way for a long time. And when, I don't know who initially proposed this version of the Water Committee, what I was told, and what I've been told for, on many occasions, is that, well, what are we doing about city water? Well, we have a water committee, That's their response. So they're using the water committee as a crutch.
Well, Rich,
To-
I'm gonna,
to-
I'm gonna, inter-
to-
I'm gonna interrupt here, you know,
Yeah.
I've given you a long time to make your case and discuss all the issues, and I wanna rebut a couple of them or just comment on them. I guess rebut wouldn't be, the actual meaning behind it, but the only thing I would rebut is characterization. My characterization had nothing to do with you personally, it had to do with the implementation. I just had a different strategy in mind. And much of what you said kind of bears witness to that. The issues you brought up about the budget and a moving target on the price, that scared the committee, actually that is detrimental to your case by stating that you don't know what the cost is, because part of an SSA is you have to come up with a budget, and if the budget is below what's needed to do the project, then you have to go through the process all over again. So that was a flaw. That's one problem. We had a budget, as you know, up front, and when you talk about getting the committee, getting the city council to act, you know, you had 50 people come to attend that meeting, according to your own words, when in effect you had, what was it, 480 households, and you couldn't get at least 200 people there. So
No,
that,
375 or
okay,
so.
375 I thought was, all right, so even 375, yet you could only get 15% of the population to show up to a meeting. The city council is not going to do this for the community. Again, it just bears witness to the fact that the community wasn't involved enough. You mentioned that I didn't hear anything about how many meetings the community had and how many times they showed up to the city council. I can only reflect back to, you know, SSA 6, which you say was a blueprint. In our blueprint, we had about, I believe, 6 community meetings over at St. Al's, 4 to 6. We had regular monthly, bi-monthly meetings at my home amongst our board of directors. And I don't know, did you have a board of directors that kept your?
All right, we had a number of group meetings, but so
I mean,
what?
did you have an official board of directors? See, you didn't have a board of directors. And then the other thing, when you mentioned about you wanted to sidestep having the association, well, that's a very integral part of you being able to negotiate and be an entity. Without that, you are not really an entity. Then it is relying upon an entity, which would be the city council. The city council, from a political standpoint, didn't want to touch a third rail. They're not going to go out and put their neck on the line, bring in all this stuff. They're just not going to do it. That's where it comes back on the community. We brought people in on a regular basis at virtually every city council
Why aren't you
meeting,
doing it now then?
because that's not my job.
I think it should be, that's what I'm
So
trying to
you
tell
think
you.
the water committee's job should be
If you're
to
going
go
to
out-
criticize, look,
Excuse
Bob,
me,
if
Rich,
you're
let
going to
me
criticize me
No, I'm
for
not.
something
I'm
that you
explaining
think
where
was
it
a
went wrong. You're
failure,
taking
then
it
why don't you
personal.
do something that you know works? Why don't you do it?
I'm not the mayor. I'm not on the city
I've
council.
been told that you're the guy that can make it happen. You can make rain happen. Then do it.
I could
Come on.
possibly, I believe I could,
Okay, go for it.
but I'm not,
I'll
not in
support
this
you.
capacity.
I'll do whatever I can to support you.
When I offered that to you before, Rich, you didn't accept it.
When was that?
When you first started doing this, I said, Rich, I'll explain this to you, I'll help you, you gotta organize it
Oh, I don't
differently.
think I recall that, but.
Yeah, I know you don't recall that, but I did. You don't wanna recall that.
Okay, well,
I
nevertheless.
did, here, I'll give you an
let's-
example.
Let's not. let's not-
I'll give you an example, since you bring up I didn't want to do that. Frank Marino was the original reason I started SSA 6. And when I asked Frank to become partners with me, he was SSA 7. He didn't have all these things put together. I said, let's join hands. No, we're ahead of you, well, we're not going to worry about it. And what happened?
The city
he-
was involved in his situation at that.
Yeah, and you saw what happened there. It was done incorrectly.
Had nothing to do with me.
No, I didn't say it had anything
By
to
the
do with
way.
you, Rich. I'm just giving you an example. I know what needs to be done. I know what my authority is and our authority is right now. We don't have the authority to go out and create the water system.
Okay.
And the
so
city council
I
is
appreciate
the
you
ones
stating
that
that,
do.
and I'll take that back to the mayor and the council. I will take that back to them, because I'm here to try to help things move forward. I'm not here to criticize anybody here, nor myself. I don't think I did a bad job. I think I did a good job in trying to make this happen,
And I
whether
told you
whether
that,
it worked
Rich,
or not.
I told you that too.
And a
You
lot of
worked
people
your
have
butt
said the
off.
same
Rich,
thing.
you worked your
And
butt off.
I will
but the
tell you
way
this,
did it
and
was
and
not
one other thing,
successful.
by the way, I've been contacted many, many times, numerous, hundreds of times, saying, Rich, when are we going to get the water? When are we going to get the water? I'm not doing anything.
Excuse me, Rich, but where are those people?
Yeah, right. Where are they?
That's the point.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. That's part of the problem.
Well, I don't think 8 o'clock, actually, that's when we had our meetings every Saturday for my SSA. At my house, we had
Okay.
coffee at 8 in the morning.
So, and that doesn't,
So 8 in the
So what?
morning, if you want something, getting up at 8 or 9 is not gonna make a difference in you getting it. If it does, you don't
oh,
really want it.
Okay, but you're not talking about wanting, you know, we're so far off the track here. It's
Yes, we are.
unbelievable. And so I really need to, let's go back to the initial concern. One is, I don't think the Water Committee has the proper authority to do what I think it needs to be doing.
Okay.
Okay, that's number
That's
one.
fair.
Number two, I think the Water Forum was missing a number of components, mainly having to do with economic development and fire protection. What would be two big things that I think would be necessary to help people understand why a city water system is important, not to mention, if they do want potable water from the city water system, that would be another interesting thing to talk about at the forum. But finally, at the final speaker at your forum was Dawn Simmons, the Realtor, who I think did a lot more promoting of herself than she did talking about really what your concerns were. And then she winds up coming out with some statement that city water is somewhat how negative to sales of property in Prospect Heights, and I can't believe that she said that, because I don't think it's true. It may be a case where, you know, if you're talking about selling houses in your SSA 6 area, and I think she was kind of talking about that mostly, these houses are not cheap. I mean, you're probably, I don't know if there are any houses that sell over there for less than $500,000. And you're talking about tax, you know, the component of their tax bill, which tax bills are high. Some people over there, I think, are, you know, tax bills have got some, let's call it between $10,000 and $20,000 a year. It's a lot of money. And you add, you know, $1,500 or $2,000 to that, yeah, it increases the tax bill. It doesn't go on forever. You're probably, what, halfway through this now?
We're halfway through, yeah.
So there's only another 10 years to go. Somebody that's going to spend north of $500,000 on a house isn't going to really, you know, just the component of the water infrastructure being paid back on their tax bill, I don't think is that big a deal to somebody that's paying that kind of money for a home. So at least I wouldn't think that would be the case if I was buying the property.
I can't disagree with you.
So-
You are preaching to the choir as
Okay,
far as my
so
personal
we're in agreement
opinion.
about that, and that's why I called her out on it. I said, look, okay, if you're a realtor in town, first of all, if you're gonna have a realtor come to a meeting like that and say those sorts of things, have a different realtor come and talk about it from the opposite side of you, because I know realtors. I know personally realtors that would come to your meeting and tell you that if you had city water, some of these properties would start selling like hotcakes. I mean, I've been told this by more than 2 people that sell property in town, and there's probably a lot more than that. So I just don't buy that argument. And the other proof that I have about this is, okay, how many people come to you as a realtor and want to buy a piece of property, or, you know, say, okay, I want to buy property in Prospect Heights, and you tell them, well, they're on a private wells in these homes that you're looking at. Oh, at that point, how many people walk away? Well, there's a percentage of people who say, oh, forget it, I'm not interested in having a piece of property with a private well. But how many people come to you and say, I want to buy a piece of property in Prospect Heights because of the private well? And her answer was 0. And that's the proof to me that,
Rich, we know all that.
Yeah, that's,
We know
yeah.
all of that.
okay, and I'm just
Thank you for
saying,
your comments. but-
I'm just saying that the person that stands up on the stage and says that type of stuff is only giving a personal opinion, perhaps, but you need to balance that with other opinions that
Isn't that what you're doing?
I am doing that right now.
I just wanted to.
and I believe you did make comments at the meeting, which.
did do that.
And I applauded you for that. Yes, that's good. That's the purpose of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as far as Dawn Simmons' ability to properly address the issue, I would somewhat agree with you. She wasn't prepared to do that. It's not like we vetted her ahead of time to make sure that she skewed or said her comments put together. It's not something that we did. At least not me personally. I don't think anybody else vetted what she was going to do.
Right.
So, you know, people are entitled to an opinion. I would, you know, like, we can take your comments forward, you know, and say, okay, let's maybe vet realtors and get 2 realtors to give 2 opinions. Could do that. But at this point, I mean, there's nothing we can do about that now. I would agree with you. I think some of this comment, you know, what you're saying is right on the money. People don't come running to Prospect Heights to buy houses because they've got wells. If they are, the value of a home would be a lot higher here,
Right.
you know?
So, in conclusion, I don't want to take up all the time here, but would you agree that you should maybe discuss with the city council what your true mission should be? I mean, the mission statement you have is, I think, maybe a start, but it needs to be modified at this stage of the game. And you've been in business for, what, 2.5 years? And we haven't had any movement on SSAs or a move towards city water. And I think that's something that, actually, I think people kind of expect you to do that. And the people that I talk to think you are, but it's not happening.
People expect everyone to do something for them and
Exactly.
do it themselves, but
Right.
that's not the way it's done.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's just, that's been the expectation, and I'm just telling you what I
We'd
can.
still be under British control right now if the people that landed here didn't decide to do something themselves.
Right. No, that's true. And I think you're right about the fact that people need to step up and get more active and involved, but it's deflating when they look at some of the things that have happened regarding water over the years. I mean, and I'm not talking about even the last 10 years. I'm talking about the last 40 years. I mean, water has been talked about ever since the days of incorporation.
Rich, we are a water committee. A water committee should not only serve the purpose of bringing water to the community, what about the people who already have water? Shouldn't we be filling their needs, answer their questions, give them information too? It's a total picture. It's not just one area. And I think the city means to serve everybody in the community, not just
I don't
those that
disagree
don't
with
have
that.
water.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So,
So
I don't know if you have any other comments, but
I think that's about
I
it.
appreciate you coming
Thank
here.
you for your
and
time.
No, thank you for getting involved.
For getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other audience comments? No. Okay. Old business, water forum, evaluation December 2nd. Anybody have, on our group here, have something to say, anything to say?
I just asked for this to be on the agenda because I thought we should at least talk about it a little bit. I mean, it was a major event in terms of putting it together and setting it up and manning it and everything else. But I just thought maybe we wanted to do a little evaluation. We did that last year. And, you know, I think talking about it will determine whether we want to do this next year or if we want to change how we're doing it, or at least get started on that kind of talk. So.
Well, anybody have any other suggestions, comments, or thoughts about the evaluation?
I thought, if you don't mind, I thought about, I was very disappointed with the turnout. We had a few things going against us. It was after Thanksgiving, it was before Christmas. It was an awesome day. I feel that I should have taken the lead with my little bulletins and advertised it better, putting out, as we did for the first forum, as I explained, you know, we went to beauty shops and library and the train station and, you know, put flyers everywhere in Prospect Heights. So perhaps that type of advertising brought something to an individual that was kind of in your face, not something that you saw on the website or you saw on the marquee, or and even though we did wonderful media, maybe there were a lot of people that, don't look to media, so perhaps the invites need to be better thought out.
But I guess my question, and I don't know if we have this data or if we can cross-reference, I mean, the first forum, we didn't do a sign-in, we didn't really have names, so my question is, the first forum, there's about 50, 70, 100 people maybe?
Yeah, it was between 50 and 75, I think.
So out of the 7 to 15 of, that showed up this time, were any of them repeat? So that the people come the first time and say, okay, now I got everything I needed, or I didn't see value in attending, what are they doing differently the second time? So for any of these, we can maybe ask, we have who came the second time, did you come the first year? Because that would be interesting, if no one showed up the second year, maybe it didn't even matter how much we advertised, it's just those folks that we were relying on, they didn't see value or didn't see the need to come to the forum again. I don't know.
I
think
thought about that
that'd
this
be
morning
interesting
too.
to
I
see.
thought maybe the first forum gave people what they needed to know, so that there was no follow-up. I'm thinking the people that we did have come on the second forum were participants that I didn't see at the first forum. People that had just moved into Prospect Heights. So I guess what you're saying is, and those people found out about it somehow. Maybe they're more savvy, or maybe they came to the block party and kept it in mind and kept watch.
Yeah, I'd be interested, I mean, obviously, people have the ability to hear us and see this meeting here this morning, that if you are listening, that to send an email to us to see if there was a reason you didn't show up the second time, if you were there last year. Was it the value? Was it you got everything you needed? Because I think that could be it too. I mean, just the pool of people that would actually show, potentially.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thanks for kicking me
I
off
don't
the
know,
hook.
right? Well, no, I mean, yeah.
And we did have it in the Prospect Heights Journal. It was posted the day before it was right on the front page, right?
Well,
Yeah.
we did 90% more advertising this time in the time frame than we did the year before. So,
Signage and everything else.
so I don't
was
know
all
if it is I don't know,
upgraded.
just on that.
Maybe the target audience, I don't know, should we have been going after a more specific target in terms of people? I mean, we were kind of general, weren't we?
Well,
In terms of notification.
hoping, very general, bringing everybody, whomever wanted to come and listen and again, providing information. I believe that it was balanced. I really do.
Maybe we looked for too narrow an audience. And when I say a narrow audience, and as I had said to Rich before, we are an entire community. We did nothing to appeal to those people who already have water.
Sure.
That is
And
one place
because
where we
they
like
have
to-
questions too. I mean, I would test my water. Why not? It doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt anything. What is the sanitary sewer system made up of? A lot of people don't know. Why are they charging you money? Where's the money going? I mean, there's a lot of questions that maybe other people in the community have too.
Right.
I don't know.
It's hard because we're trying to make decisions, and naturally, there's no formal place for people to voice it other than maybe emails or, so we don't know what people are thinking. If no one can share, then then we're guessing like we're trying to do now.
You might be right, Kay, though, broadening our audience may help us. And I was thinking, some things that were good about the forum, and maybe we can start off with that.
Yeah.
Venue, fantastic.
Right.
We're never gonna get anything, I don't see us getting anything nicer than that, so that's something we wanna keep.
Good point, yep.
The vendors that we had there, I think were good. So I think that was a positive thing, and that's something we wanna keep, assuming we're going to do this again. The speakers, maybe we wanna broaden that a little bit to include, somebody who might be able to shed some light on water rates. And SSAs, we kind of did that, but water rates, I think, and you're right, I think that's a part of our three-prong mission statement that's kind of lacking a little bit.
I love the idea of having somebody from the fire district come. and talk
That
about
was an
safety.
Right.
that was
I
an
think that's a
excellent-
great thing.
And I
Um,
thought maybe next year, and I'm going to assume that we're going to do this again next year, maybe we get ahead of the game and we put something together and we give it to realtors, so as they're interviewing or in touch with potential buyers, for the city of Prospect Heights, they get something that says, hey, there's a forum, if you're interested, if you're really thinking about buying here, there's gonna be a forum in December.
Excuse me, you gave me a thought here. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
The idea of involving the realtors within the Prospect Heights area, do we want to perhaps get an informal survey out there so that every time someone comes in to view a home in Prospect Heights, if they decide not to buy it or to buy it,
Was
would
water
they
involved?
give us feedback from the realtor saying, so that by the end of, let's say, a month, they might have 1,000 people run through the office and they sold like 3 homes and they showed 1,000 homes and only 3 were purchased because of why?
That would be that would be some feedback.
So maybe that's something we should do as a committee, is put together some form of survey on a voluntary basis and ask the realtors to provide this to every person that views a home in Prospect Heights and get feedback.
Can I guess I'll ask, hopefully, I guess those realtors would do that for the benefit of the community, right? I mean, it's another
Well,
step in
we'd
their
have
process.
We'd have to set it up and give them something to do. All they'd have to do is pass it out or.
Right, and I'm just, with that
Somebody
process,
fill it up.
hopefully they would execute
I
that.
would think so.
I don't.
I mean,
Well, they have a lot of information, a realtor. I mean, they can't.
But we're not getting it. That's what I'm
Right.
thinking, is we need,
And-
we
and
should see, for the sake of argument, whether, people are moving into the community at a reasonable basis or declining moving in at a reasonable basis.
well, if it has anything to do with water.
Yeah.
That's what we
It
want to
Right,
know.
doesn't,
it's
is water a
specific.
That's all we
factor?
want to know. Maybe we could do something, I don't know, not exactly like that, but something with the fire department too. I happened to speak to one of the people who told me that he was, I don't remember his name, but he told me he was on the board, the fire commission board. And I asked him about firefighting with wells, and he said absolutely has no effect on firefighting. Now, that's what he told me. That's one person's opinion. He said, we have pumper trucks and we have tankers and we have the capability of fighting any fire in this city without fire hydrants. It has no effect on our ability. So, that's one person's opinion. We've heard that there are other people who say that it is, essential that we have hydrants in the
Well,
water.
our former chief Gould, we had a bad fire one year, and that, I don't recall our exact conversation, but, some of the problem around that was lack of water.
Well, I think we should find that out, because there is a lot of just innuendo and things going around all over the place. I mean, people are just saying, I talked to this person,
Right.
just like I just did. We should find out facts, whether it is, and maybe it's just not here, maybe we need to go outside of the city. We should find out whether that really has an effect on firefighting ability, capability. And I'm sure there's gonna be factors like, what kind of equipment you have, but we should find that out, because right now, we've got people saying, it affects the real estate, it doesn't affect real estate, it affects the fire, it doesn't affect the fire. Let's find out what is real.
I have a good realtor friend that I know, she has at least a few listings here in Prospect Heights, at least active. I used her for my purchase here, so I can inquire and see if she could see using that and maybe get direct feedback initially, like, hey, has that been a comment?
I too have several friends,
I mean-
which I'm happy to.
If we have, what do they call those, roundtable discussion, invite local realtors.
I think that's good, but I wanna see something tangible, so that if we present it, we've got numbers and we've got something written.
Right, we need data, right?
May I make a comment?
No, we've got
Can
to
you-
go home today.
Hold on, Rich.
It'll be less than 30 seconds.
Okay, Rich.
Thank you. 29. The fire district has a position statement written. Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
Yeah, you should read that position statement. You'll learn what they think about water and fighting fires. And also, Lou, we can't hear you. You need to move the microphone closer, talk to it differently, but you're not being picked up.
Okay.
Everybody else is fine, but
I don't know why.
for some reason, and make sure your microphone is on. Is it green?
Yeah.
It's green, yeah.
So, yeah, just one case. Thank you.
Where would we find the
Okay,
position
so
statement?
let me, the point that Rich brought up, actually, I made a note, we should get some form of written report perhaps from the
Stereo.
fire department. So what I was gonna suggest, maybe if you would contact, our fire department
I can do that, sure.
and ask them along that line if they have something, a position statement or an something, formal that's written about fighting fires and the impact of having wells versus not having wells, and anything specific to Prospect Heights that might be unique.
I'll start with their website,
Okay.
and then I'll go from there.
Then the second part of this is with respect to realtors, since Sean jumped in and he's had like 3 or 4 months of time to get
Yeah, a lot of thoughts here,
reinvigorated.
guys.
I'd like you to maybe get a hold of a few realtors and ask them, would they mind participating in maybe a 60 or 90-day window of surveys by, we're coming into the buying season soon,
Yeah, that's a good point.
or longer, where they would voluntarily see to it to fill out a report, a form that we would ask them to fill out with everybody who's looking at a Prospect Heights home. And return that to us either by email or drop it off or some form. Or we can do it in an email format.
Yeah.
They can just send it to us. Something we've got to come up with here. We'll be working on it in the
Right.
meantime as
Yes.
a, as a committee.
Yes.
But I'd like you to go out into the community
Yep.
and get some local realtors,
Yep, I got it. Yep,
So does
I can do that.
sound good?
Absolutely,
And
100%.
Kay, if you want to assist him with your references to whatever extent you'd like to.
In my community, we have 3 or 4 realtors that I know,
Yeah.
so it's easy to talk to people.
And then we have to come up with some simple survey that they
3,
can
4
complete.
question, yeah.
Yeah, what was the reaction, what did people think of the home itself versus was water an issue and the reason they changed, or was it price? Those sort of questions we need to put on there so they're not skewed toward one reality.
Yeah, great.
Okay, that's our job. But then, because that goes to one of Rich's points, what's the economic impact on Prospect Heights? And as you heard from me, I said, well, if people love, having well water, then our real estate value should be much higher because there's not many of us around.
Fine, man. Fine.
So, I would agree in that respect, but that's not the case. So, we can get some numbers, we can see what it looks like, at least, we'll be doing something proactive for the community.
That's a great, yep.
Are there any other entities that we might want to consider talking to that might be able to shed some light on effects of water in the city of Prospect Heights? I can't think any right offhand, but maybe there are other, I don't know. Maybe we could think about it, and if we have anything, maybe.
Well,
talk about it next
one
week.
place we could get feedback might be the Chamber of Commerce, because people wanting to move into the city, which is another point that Rich brought up, and another point that I would agree on is, what's the economic impact, not having a city, a reliable city water system for a variety of reasons makes it difficult for business owners to want to move in. When you can't,
That would be like community development or something like that.
yeah, but,
Part of the city.
I don't know. It'd be more, I guess it'd be more, getting to the right number, talk is kind of hard, because you need someone, like with a realtor, they're actually in front of a customer, the customer's saying yes or no on a piece of property.
But economic development would be the commercial end of that, would it not? So there should be records of that, also people who maybe the city has tried to lure into developing here, or have come to the city and said, I
Well,
want
let
to
me-
develop,
excuse
only
me.
to find out that there's
Let
wells
me
in the.
rely upon our great resource here.
He's been waiting in the wings
Poor
here.
Peter.
He's ready.
Peter, you understand the flavor of what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Who would know people moving or looking to move in or out with businesses that could?
Commercial, you're talking about, Dan Peterson's only been here a little longer than me, 2.5 years.
Who?
Dan Peterson, who's our Building Community Economic Development Director.
That's what I'm talking.
So if someone were to come in, they would either go, say maybe to the mayor, if someone was interested in creating a business here, or to Dan himself. So we're looking at a very limited window. But from my experience and having experience in economic development in another community, when a larger company, I'm not talking about a mom and pop shop, but when a larger either retailer or commercial entity is looking at Prospect Heights or whatever municipality, they already know whether they're going to have city water or well water. So that's not like, it wouldn't be something like they would come to us and go, hey, I want to build here, and then, oh my God, you have well water. They do their research. So the odds of someone coming in and getting that surprise put on them and then going, okay, then I'm not going to go into Prospect Heights is pretty slim. They pretty much if they're not interested in well water, would have steered clear already from us.
Before they got to
Yeah.
Mr. Peterson.
More than likely before. It's possible.
See, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out here. That's where I'm having a hard time. With a realtor, people walk in the door, they don't know the community, they find out,
Absolutely.
oh, well water.
Commercial would be
Find that.
completely different.
Yeah, so
Now, it's possible that, like I said, some small, like middle, medium retailers that's happened to, and I can reach out to Dan. Unfortunately, it's a limited time span. It's only 2.5 years, but I will reach out to him and find out exactly if how many times that's happened. Is that a recurring theme? Because it's very possible that has happened. I just don't know to the extent that we can measure. Because like I said, the bigger ticket retailers would have already known that, or they would come to us and say, there would be an instance, I'm sure, where they'd come to us and say, I know this lot is on well water. What's the possibility of getting city water here?
That was gonna be
And
my
then,
comment.
and then the deal falls through. So I will follow through with Dan on that.
Appreciate it.
Because it's trying to find a source that has that data that's important and where we can get something credible. You know, it's not credible to just general,
It's going to be strictly just
yeah.
Dan's recollection of what's happened over the last 2.5 years.
I guess, can I make a comment? So we're gathering this data, or hopefully gathering this data through a 30, 60, 90-day, 2018. And so as a committee, we have it. It's on the website. We have the data. To part of the conversation today, that's essentially at this point, we are data gatherers to let the community know. We are not the people then to act on it at this point.
Well, right, we're gonna create data that's going to either support one side or the other or be inconclusive, but we'll have the data.
Right.
So that people can't say, have these disputes, just like, the survey of would you like water, wouldn't you like water, and then you get the percentage of people say yes or no, so you get a sampling. But here, you've got people who are actually making a decision to either move into the community
Right.
or not.
Yep.
And why,
Right.
But
But I'm saying for the big goal, right, for the big wig, as you can call it, at the end of the day, it's to gather as much information as possible for the people in the community
To make decisions.
to make decisions on either
Exactly.
side
Exactly.
as our advisory committee sits. That's why we're doing this.
That's why I see it, that's where I see us, provide information to, again, the 3 categories. People who have wells, want to keep them, people who have wells, don't want to keep them, people who have city water and want to know more about it. And
We're happy.
And then you can make a decision, they can make decisions based on information that we're providing for them.
And we're happy to assist on either way, and the best way to
Right.
maintain a well or the best way to go around creating SSA.
Right,
because
whatever you
we
want
have
to
the
do,
info.
here it is. But
Are
I
we in
don't-
agreement on that? I mean, that's our
Yes,
statement.
yes.
That's why we would be doing this with realtors and things of that nature.
Right, I don't think we want to be pushing in any direction. I mean, I don't think, first of all, it's not our function, and I don't think that we do a disservice to the residents of Prospect Heights if we're pushing in any direction, because for every direction we're pushing, there's somebody who doesn't want it. And, it's majority rule. If you want water and you have a majority of people in your neighborhood that want to create an SSA and have water, then you have it. If you don't, then you don't. You don't want to shove this down people's throat. That's not the point of this. That's my,
As it stands right now.
as it stands right now.
Okay, I'm just-
I would agree with you, it's not a matter of forcing people to go one way or the other, but we owe it to give them facts
Yes,
to make a
definitely.
decision on.
Yes,
Definitely.
perfect.
Now, you're always gonna have some people who won't like the facts,
Mhm.
but those are the
That's
facts
facts.
nevertheless.
Right.
And yes, you can, just to play devil's advocate here, yes, you're gonna have people who say, yeah, I'm glad that I got a well, but, and it, like Dawn made the comment that she didn't think it was a problem. Well, obviously you found someone who's willing to buy the house.
Right.
and, you know, buying the house, you just happen to like the house, you know,
And you'll deal with, yeah.
yeah, and you'll deal with it. You like, I mean, I love the location too. You know, I've been here over 30 years. When I moved in, it wasn't because it had a well. I'll guarantee you that. When I saw the well and all the problems I had with it, I was like, this is a real pain, but what are you gonna do? And I lived with that for like, well, let's see, we got it 2007. At that point, it was 23 years. And I bought it because I loved the location. I liked the size of the lot.
Yep.
I like, you know, I mean, it's a great, I've always said it, this is a diamond in the rough.
It really is. Yep.
And I don't think there's any other community location better than Prospect Heights, but nothing's ever been done with it.
Right.
And that's the disappointing part of it. So-
My daughter, who lives in Mount Prospect, not far from here, about 1.5 miles, has well water. Her husband, it doesn't bother him at all. He said, I use all the water I want to water my plant, whatever. And she goes, oh, I would never drink that water. And there's gallons of water in the house, and they're living in the same house, and they have different opinions.
That's like a Packer fan marrying a Bear fan, right? It's not much different. But you know, we all understand the gravity of the situation, okay? Yeah, city water costs you money, okay, but it's reliable, there's no afterthought, and you just don't see the detriment of well water, because it's under the surface in a lot of ways. You don't notice it, except things wear out faster,
Oh,
you know? Mine
Discolored.
always did, they discolored.
yeah.
You know, and I remember the people at St. Al's, how many times, you know, their fixtures are just completely eroded, and you would think that they'd be able to treat the water, and they couldn't, and, those are just my observations over the years, and those are the facts, that's what happened. So, but a lot of other people, they had better luck. You know, all the wells are different within the city, some are worse than others. Some people can't find water, they can dig, you know, 8, 10 wells and get nothing. Other people, they have great water.
Or the water table lowers, and you have to dig to find it.
Well, the reckoning will be if we ever get into a situation again where the wells go down so low, people aren't getting water, and then what do? You know, and who knows when that's gonna happen? Or if it gets contaminated, like we had the contamination issue from the tear down of the that bank building over on the corner. You know, if that could have gotten out of hand before someone caught it. You know, all those people would be drinking polluted water in their systems. Then what do? You got no water. So, I'm a proponent of it, but like we all agree, we are not in that position. We got off the evaluation part, but I think we made some good progress on our tasks to going forward for our next meeting. Any other comments, evaluation, other than the fact that the lack of participation by the community? I would agree that I think we did more this year than last year. I love the venue. Catch-22 on the venue is we'd have to pay for it if we do it earlier than November.
Probably, yes, because they want to wait, the Park District wants to wait to make sure that they don't have any major paying customers scheduling in there, and they don't know that till September. So we probably could do it in October, but we would only have maybe a month to set it up, because we wouldn't know for sure until September what the date was. So we might be able to do it in October. I don't remember why we didn't do it this year.
Well, I think originally the thought process, we were looking at maybe the middle of October, but I explained to you I wouldn't be here.
Right, and I think then you've got holidays
Which, to me, it
involved.
doesn't matter, but.
Well, you've got, you start pushing into Thanksgiving, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and the holidays. I mean, we kind of got in there between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which was okay, but it would have been better if it was, last year we did it in November. Now, maybe that had some effect on the attendance. We did it on November 12th, I believe, and last year, and this year we did on December 2nd. That might have been enough. December 12th or December 2nd puts you into the holiday season, whereas November 12th did not. So, maybe that's something we want to talk about too.
Well, yeah, I mean, perhaps we try to get it done like, no later than at least a full solid week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and
Or
more
sooner.
if possible,
Yeah.
right.
But I know my obligations, I'm not available probably the first weekend of November. So it'd have to be no sooner than the second weekend if I'm gonna be present.
Right. Yeah, there's no
Or it'd
reason
have
why
to
we
be
couldn't
prior
do
to
it.
like the middle of October. Because there's a 3-week period there I'm not available, that's just the way it is.
Well, we could talk about that. I mean, I think we can get a verification of the date through the Park District probably by September 1st. If we feel that 6 weeks would be enough to do what we need to do, then we might be able to do it that early.
And they might have, well, of course, there's no guarantee of the future on past performance, as our esteemed
Yeah,
member over
yeah,
there
I
knows.
know, I've heard that one.
What kind of feedback would they be able to give us as far as how many weekends were occupied by weddings and stuff in October? Would we be able to reserve an October date earlier?
We talked about that this year, and they weren't ready to commit to a date until after September, or until in September.
That seems kind of late for a wedding. I guess there's other events other than a wedding.
Have we asked how
Well,
much it
yes.
would cost us to rent that space?
I looked at it, it would, probably looking at about $600, maybe. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I think I came up with somewhere around we were looking at 6 hours. So right around $600, and that might be a little, $100 either way, plus or minus.
Lou, you personally put in so much effort for that.
Yeah, you did.
You really,
Yeah, no more than Dean. He put in a lot of
Yeah,
time.
Dee and
Jill.
Lou actually did quite a bit to carry this forward.
Well,
good.
you know
So we
what
don't have to
I
do anything
thought
next year.
was great is, even though we didn't have the attendance that we were all excited about based on last year, we have an awesome video on the website.
Yes, we do have that.
Awesome way to find it, opening it up,
Well, that's a good
listening,
point. I'm
and
glad
you know
bring it
what?
up,
Yeah.
You can turn it on and listen to the speeches and the workshops, and I thought that was just
Yeah.
great. And I mean, hats off to Patrick
I'm
and
glad,
Peter.
I'm glad, yeah,
That
I'm glad you
was
brought that up.
really,
because
really
Patrick-
awesome.
Patrick has always done a great job, and he did a great
Mhm.
job again, and even though, the actual event wasn't well attended, it's out there for people.
But it's there.
how I saw it.
I mean, everybody could see, so you don't, what would have been nice is if we can get how many hits that video,
Well, I'll check with Patrick.
I mean, and at least we know how many times it's been viewed. It'd be great if we found out that, 200 or 300 people had viewed that forum, that found it interesting, because you can't not find it interesting. Do you know what I mean? It gives you everything. So anyways.
So I guess for those that don't know,
Go
that
to
video
the
is out there. The
website.
forum is out there on the website. I know it was on social media. I saw it there. So you can go visit that to see what the forum was all about when we had it in December.
Also, while we're on the subject, Bob, I think your presentation on the SSA I watched that a couple times. Very nice, very nicely done. Patrick too, moving from kind of the inside to the field.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
will.
that was great.
Very nice, very nicely done. And I think that kind of goes against what was said this morning about us not putting time into providing information on SSAs. That was a big one right there, so.
Well, thank you. I'm really proud of our committee as we're formed and what we're trying to do within the restrictions and mission statement we currently have. So I'm just disappointed we don't have more community participation. And again,
We also know it is a process and it takes time. Still 2 years is 2 years only,
I think people are content and there's nothing that's, people don't do things until they're disturbed.
Right.
And so nobody's disturbed,
Which is good.
which is
and
kind of a
bad.
compliment and
Yeah, right.
also not a compliment. But anything else on the evaluations? I mean, we'll have time to discuss it further, but I think we got a good base for what we need to do for the next one, if we're gonna do that or not. Website reconstruction, that's on the old, I think, our last.
I think that's kind of ongoing,
Yeah,
don't you?
No, yeah.
so nothing new
I'm
to
sorry.
discuss there.
I was making a joke.
Budget, water committee budget,
Yeah, this is nice that we can reflect on this here.
I asked for this to be on there because I thought, you know, the budget season is what, is it May 1st or June 1st, the beginning? May 1st. So we're going to have to come up with so we've got like 3 or 4 months here in this current budget year before we begin a new one. And so two things. One is I wanted to just see where we were, kind of a snapshot of where we were money-wise. And second of all, we probably need to maybe start talking a little bit about the 2019 or 2018. Yeah, we need, for the 2018 budget, 2018, 2019. So that was just a kind of an open discussion on.
So I'm seeing here on the bottom, that's what we've spent here today since our original budget was approved, right?
Does it just go away?
Exactly.
It goes away on March 31st?
Yeah, there's no rollover.
Okay.
And that this, while this was the budget you proposed almost a year ago, your budget for this fiscal year, 17-18, was $3,000 even. So there is probably going to be some belt tightening. I've already spoke with one of my, I'm a liaison for another committee, and there was some cutting there. We have the 3,000 in. I will confirm that for you, that, so the same amount of money, but there's a possibility that could be shaved a little bit, so just keep that in mind. The good news is you spent just less than $1,000 this year. So if there is some reduction going forward, you do have a cushion, so. But what I would highly recommend, because we are in the budget process right now, that you as a committee kind of like hone this down to, you know, what are the essentials that you need, prioritize what you want to do in the coming year. If it is going to be the water forum again, which I think you're all in favor of, then, you know, that's a priority in your budget, and then go back from there, so.
We also have the block party. Maybe this year we could, you know, get an official water committee banner,
That would be
you
nice.
know, which can go,
Did we ever
last
buy
forever.
a tent or a shade,
No,
sun
no.
protection?
No.
That would be if we're going to do this every year, that would be kind of something
So,
nice.
I mean, we
and we're
kind
not
of
going to-
focused on the forum.
We're not going to
instead
need
of
the
this-
water forum signage.
No, that's all.
That should be good for at least a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So there's $200 that we're not going to spend next year. Maybe we can use that for banners and some kind of protection against the sun for the block party.
We didn't go off-site or off-campus for the printing. We were able to work through Peter for the printing. We got a better deal on the,
Yeah, I mean, where we can save
You
money,
know,
save money, like we did.
yeah.
Do you want to go through this line item by line item, or do you want to maybe look at it and then come back next?
yeah, let's look at this and come back at it, you know, we're starting to get
In our
late
February
here. We can come back in February.
Okay.
And so, I think, you know, going to new business, we'll look at, you know, what we're gonna do as far as, the real estate, contacts and preparing a survey,
And the fire protection
the fire protection,
and the economic development.
economic development information, the economic impact,
No,
and
wait,
that'll-
you're going to, I can't write that fast, guys. Let's do that again. New business?
New business, we're gonna go over the, you know, preparing a survey for
Survey.
realtors,
Okay.
discuss commercial economic development impact, and fire department, report on fighting fires in a community like ours.
Okay.
So for the new business.
Okay. Can we also add to our new business I think we should talk about the Old Town sanitary sewer system.
That we should gather some information to
Well, I
try
don't-
to attract more people.
But that's outside of our mission statement, is we were talking about potable water. That's not potable water issue.
And Old Town's gone, right?
Well,
It's taken over now by the,
We own it,
yeah.
Oh, you own-
It's our,
It's the city had to take it over.
right, but it's not Old Town anymore, right?
No, it's city
Yeah,
across the
okay,
fence, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, our purview here is we're not, that's not potable, a matter of potable water. It's not that it's diminishing the importance of it, it's just not something we're charged with. If that
that
changes.
would include water rates as well, then.
Well, water rates, that's potable water,
Yeah.
whereas, good morning, Mayor.
Morning.
I guess we were running long enough for you to get up. Everyone complains we start too early.
Welcome.
We have a list here of people that want, we should have gone over this at the evaluation, but people won the kits, if you want to mention them. I think we should mention them, put them on record as who won.
So, as I mentioned earlier, being a novice and running these raffles, I didn't realize that it would be inappropriate for any city official to actually win one of the raffles. It might seem to be not proper. So, since we were lucky enough to have two city officials win a Yeti, it was thought that a second drawing be made. That second drawing was made, and, well, Paul Fisher had won a Yeti. John Martin, he was a second draw for one of the city officials, had won a Yeti. And there is a fella by the name of Mike, and I'm going to screw up his last name, so I'm not going to even bother trying to.
Schwelowitz.
Schwelowitz.
SCHVLEWITZ.
He was also a second draw winner. And I actually, to this list, I have proposed an email that I'd like to send, or that perhaps the city can send on the Water Committee's behalf, and letting him know, because he was already gone when the second drawing had taken place, letting him know that he is a winner of the Yeti, and just kind of find out how he wants to receive that. We also have recipients of the winners of the water testing voucher. There was Kalina Nikolova. She had won one of the vouchers for testing city water. She's a new resident of Prospect Heights and had bought over at near the slough, I believe. I did send a note out to her
Thank you.
the very next day because of her concerns of wanting to get it done, and I apologize for not running that by the committee. I did send out the email to her as a fellow resident and had suggested going to the Illinois Water Survey. I also attached a letter to, that I had sent to Kalina. Again, we had two other recipients that had won the water testing voucher, one of which being Ralph, who is on the water committee team here. He mentioned that he wasn't really interested in the voucher. I don't know whether he wants to donate it back or not. And another fellow who actually came in from Buffalo Grove. I have not sent out this note to Ron Villanueva from Buffalo Grove in regards to the water testing kit. And I don't believe I have an email that we could send to him, letting him know that he is a winner. So all in all, I think we have think we did a pretty nice job. There were a couple of people that were only interested in water testing, which to me, since we gave the option of water testing and/or Yeti or both, there were a couple of people that were really only interested in entering the drawing for water testing kits. So that's a nice, maybe they have a ton of Yetis, I don't know. They really didn't care whether they won a Yeti or not.
All right, thank you. Any subcommittee reports at this time?
No, as mentioned earlier, not on my end.
No? Any other matters to bring forward here?
Next meeting day?
Next meeting date? February 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
At 8 o'clock in the morning.
All right. A motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.